Okay, let's unpack this. What if I told you that stopping to pick up a piece of stray trash on your morning walk might be mathematically identical to, well, to stealing from your own
Yeah,
future?
right, which sounds completely counterintuitive at first.
It sounds nuts. And what if, the random, seemingly insignificant choices you make before like 90 a.m. are already locked into this cosmic algorithm that dictates the rest of your life?
Yeah, that is exactly what we are getting into today, the terrifying, unyielding math of human choices.
Exactly. Today, we are diving into a framework that takes these grand, abstract theories of physics and philosophy and, well, turns them into a gripping, highly practical self-help guide for navigating reality.
And it really is a guide that applies to absolutely everyone, young and old. The whole mission here is to learn how to become radically more effective.
We are pulling from two phenomenal texts for this deep dive today. One is called Causal Priority, The Mechanics of Significantism, and the other is this piece titled The Geometry of Influence, A Strategy for Deterministic Living.
Yeah, and both of these sources, they attempt something that honestly borders on the impossible. They take the coldest, most unforgiving concept in theoretical physics, hard determinism, and they weaponize it for self-improvement.
Which is wild because usually determinism is super depressing, right? Like, oh, nothing matters.
Exactly. But they aren't trying to sell you some mystical energy or a habit tracking app. They are offering a fundamental rewrite of how you perceive the mechanics of your daily existence.
Right, turning abstract cosmic laws into a literal blueprint for action the next time you walk out your front door. It's fascinating.
It really is.
But I feel like we have to establish the absolute baseline rule of the universe according to these sources before we get anywhere near the life optimization part, because, the premise is heady.
It is incredibly heavy. The bedrock of both texts is determinism.
Right, so the assertion here is that every single event, every fleeting thought you have, every decision you make, and every physical action you take is the inevitable, inescapable consequence of prior causes.
Yeah. The universe described here, it does not tolerate randomness at all. It operates on a strict, unbroken system of cause and effect. Nothing happens in a vacuum.
So like the words we're saying right now.
Exactly. The words I am speaking at this exact millisecond are the mechanical result of, well, electrical impulses in my brain. And those were dictated by the texts I read, the coffee I drank this morning.
The genetic lottery of your ancestors, right?
Yes, stretching all the way back in an unbroken chain to the dawn of time. The text relies on the classic visual of the domino effect to explain this, but on a scale that is almost impossible for the human mind to fully comprehend.
Right, so imagine an infinitely complex chain of dominoes, trillions of them branching out in every conceivable direction, interacting, colliding, falling continuously.
It's just a massive web of causality.
And in a deterministic universe, every action is a falling domino. It strikes the next, initiating another fall in an endless chain. So your mood right now, the fact that you pressed play on this deep dive, you are the result of an unimaginably long chain of dominoes.
Dominoes that have been falling for billions of years. Your entire existence is basically the trailing edge of a cosmic shockwave.
Which naturally leads to a profound psychological crisis for most people who encounter this idea. It freaks people out.
Oh, absolutely, because if every event is the inevitable consequence of prior causes, if the dominoes are already falling and my actions are pre-written by the Big Bang, why on earth should I try?
Right. This is what the sources refer to as the deterministic dilemma. Determinism is a fantastic descriptive tool, right? It explains how the machinery of reality unfolds.
But it offers absolutely zero prescriptive advice. It doesn't tell a rational person which actions they should deliberately choose.
Because if the outcome is locked in, picking between, say, a salad and a pizza feels like a total illusion. If I'm just a meat robot programmed by physics, why shouldn't I just lie on the floor and let the universe happen to me?
And that fatalistic surrender is the most common trap. It's one the geometry of influence aggressively deconstructs.
Yeah, they really go after that idea.
What's fascinating here is that the text argues this fatalistic view fundamentally misunderstands what a human being actually is within this physical framework.
How so?
Well, when people imagine the falling dominoes, they almost always visualize themselves standing outside the chain watching it happen to them. They view causality as a tidal wave, and they are the helpless surfer.
But the text is arguing we aren't the surfer, we are the wave.
Precisely. You are not standing outside the domino chain. You are the dominoes. The philosophy isn't attempting to change the laws of causality. You can't step outside the universe to rewrite the rules of physics.
Right, obviously.
But you must recognize that you, as a conscious, deliberating entity, are a primary mechanism of causality. Your thoughts, your anxieties, your debates with yourself, and your ultimate choices, they are the very engines of the universe unfolding in real time.
I want to push back on this, though, because the feeling of being a puppet is really hard to shake. If my choice to, say, start a new business today was predetermined by my past, how can you call it an engine?
I hear that a lot.
It just feels like I'm playing a movie that has already been filmed. The script is written.
Sure, but the movie cannot play without the projector. Your conscious deliberation is the projector. Think of it this way. If you choose to lie on the floor and do nothing, operating under the belief that it doesn't matter, you are not escaping the causal chain.
You're just starting a really boring one.
A highly destructive one, actually. That choice to do nothing is a massive domino falling. It will knock over other dominoes, atrophy, missed opportunities, severed relationships, poverty.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
You cannot opt out of causality.
Yeah.
Because you are embedded in reality, you are violently forced to initiate causal chains in every waking moment.
So wait, you're saying that determinism is the reason choices matter, not the reason they don't.
Exactly. Determinism dictates that actions have inescapable consequences. Therefore, your actions are the most terrifyingly important things in the world. They dictate the future state of the universe.
Wow, that reframes the entire concept. It turns a philosophy of despair into an incredibly demanding call to action.
It really does. It empowers you.
Determinism isn't a permission slip for apathy. It is the exact reason why your deliberate choices are the literal architecture of reality. Your attention, your physical effort, they are the dominoes that will dictate what the future looks like for you and everyone in your blast radius.
The texts are taking determinism and turning it into a tool. They accept the machine-like nature of reality, and their proposition is simple. Learn how the machine functions, and then use it to engineer better outcomes.
That proposition sounds super clean on paper, but I feel like it immediately runs into a massive practical roadblock.
Oh, for sure. The volume of choices.
Yes. If we accept this premise that we are forced to act, and our actions create the future whether we like it or not, how do we possibly navigate the sheer volume of choices we face?
It's overwhelming.
I mean, I am making thousands of decisions a day. Some are monumental, like buying a house, and some are just granular, like choosing which email to reply to first. If every action is a domino, I am standing in an ocean of them. How do I know which ones to push?
That navigational crisis is exactly what causal priority seeks to resolve by introducing the central concept of this framework, significantism.
Right, significantism. The text defines this as the deliberate, calculated practice of choosing actions that have a high expected positive impact relative to the resources required.
And it categorizes those resources very strictly: time, energy, risk, and material capital.
So it's very analytical.
Very. The underlying assertion of the geometry of influence is that while every single action contributes to the future state of reality, not every action contributes equally.
The causal network is not flat.
Exactly. Some dominoes are tiny, they fall over and move a few grains of sand. Other dominoes are load-bearing pillars that, when pushed, alter the entire landscape.
And the necessity of this strategy of figuring out which domino is which stems from a deeply uncomfortable biological truth, right? Our resources are finite. We have a hard limit on our existence.
The finitude of human capacity is the engine of this entire philosophy. You have a strictly limited lifespan. You have 24 hours in a day.
You can't do it all.
Right. You possess a specific, depletable reservoir of physical energy and cognitive bandwidth before decision fatigue sets in. Your social capital and emotional resilience are finite. You operate in a state of permanent scarcity.
So, given that absolute scarcity, the goal of a rational life cannot be to perform every single possible good action. You just can't.
No, it's biologically impossible.
You cannot adopt every stray animal. You cannot mentor every junior employee. You cannot protest every injustice. And you cannot fix every broken appliance in your house.
If you attempt to maximize the sheer volume of your actions, you will bankrupt yourself cognitively and physically.
Significantism demands that we stop prioritizing volume and start prioritizing leverage. We have to seek out the specific actions that generate the greatest beneficial influence on future causal chains for the lowest possible cost.
It demands that you treat your energy with the ruthlessness of a venture capitalist.
Oh, I love that analogy from the text.
It's perfect. A venture capitalist does not invest in every single startup that pitches them, even if the startup has a vaguely good idea. They analyze the required capital against the expected return.
Right. They look for asymmetric upside.
Exactly. Significantism requires you to view your daily physical and mental effort as your capital. You wake up with a set budget of energy. This framework is the analytical tool you use to deploy that energy to achieve the highest possible yield in positive reality alteration.
It takes determinism, the how of the universe, and builds a prescriptive optimization strategy right on top of it. But abstract definitions only go so far. Let's look at the primary real-world example provided in the sources to illustrate what a high-leverage domino actually looks like.
Yes. The parable of the nail.
The text calls this scenario the parable of the nail. It's so good.
It really is the Rosetta Stone for understanding this entire philosophy. It perfectly isolates the variables of cost and consequence.
Okay, let's set the scene exactly as the text describes. You are walking along a busy residential roadway. You are exercising, listening to music, just minding your own business.
A totally normal morning.
Right. And you glance down and you spot a large, rusted, sharp nail resting right in the middle of the driving lane.
So if we pause reality in that moment and apply the lens of significantism, we first have to calculate the input cost. What is required of you to intervene in this causal chain?
Well, the cost is vanishingly small. You must stop walking for perhaps 2.5 seconds. You bend over, expend a fraction of a calorie to pick up the nail, and you toss it into the overgrown grass on the shoulder.
Right, you lose almost zero time. The physical risk to you is negligible, assuming you look both ways before stepping into the lane. The resource expenditure doesn't even register.
The investment is nearly zero.
Now, we calculate the expected return by mapping out the alternative timeline. What is the causal chain that you are actively preventing by spending those 2 seconds?
Here's where it gets really interesting. If you do nothing, the nail remains. The probability is exceedingly high that a vehicle drives over it. The tire is punctured.
Instantly, we have a financial loss for the driver.
Right. A tow truck fee, the cost of a new tire, perhaps a missed shift at work. It's a huge headache.
But the causal chain expands exponentially from there. A blown tire on a busy roadway creates immediate traffic friction. Other drivers hit their brakes or swerve to avoid the disabled vehicle.
The flow of traffic is compromised, meaning hundreds of people are now delayed. We are now looking at hundreds of collective hours of human time destroyed.
Furthermore, that sudden swerving increases the probability of a secondary high-speed collision, which introduces the potential for severe property damage, bodily injury, or loss of life.
By spending 2 seconds and a fraction of a calorie, you have initiated a causal chain that prevents thousands of dollars in damage, preserves hundreds of hours of human life, and potentially saves a family from tragedy.
The asymmetry between the microscopic cost to you and the massive prevented harm to the world is the textbook definition of a highly significant action.
You found a massive, heavy domino, but it was balanced on a razor's edge, requiring almost no effort to push.
And the geometry of influence introduces a fascinating self-referential twist to this parable. It forces you to realize that you are embedded in the very same causal network you are manipulating.
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, the person who ultimately reaps the greatest benefit from you moving that nail might actually be your future self.
How does the math support that? It seems like a huge stretch to assume I'm saving myself by helping some random stranger.
It's about the density of the causal web. If you leave the nail and it causes a major traffic incident, the cascading delays ripple outward.
Okay, I follow.
Perhaps the delivery driver carrying a critical medical device you ordered gets caught in that gridlock. Perhaps the driver who blew their tire is the primary school teacher for your child, and their absence throws your entire day into chaos.
Oh.
Or, most directly, perhaps you forget the nail is there, run the same route tomorrow, and step on it yourself.
That effectively destroys the boundary between altruism and self-interest.
Completely.
In a densely interconnected deterministic system, doing a high-return favor for the system is mathematically indistinguishable from doing a favor for your future self.
Exactly. It democratizes the idea of significance. You don't need to be a billionaire philanthropist to practice significantism. You don't have to dedicate your life to a monastery.
Significance is entirely defined by mathematical asymmetry, minimal input yielding massive output.
It is the pursuit of supreme efficiency in your interactions with reality, finding the leverage points where reality is highly malleable to your slightest touch.
But this is where the philosophy faces its most aggressive challenge, I think. Because if removing the nail is a mandatory action under this framework, what happens when we scale this up to everyday life?
That's the trap.
Yeah, because if I walk down a city block, I am bombarded by hundreds of things that could be improved. I see a piece of trash, I see a sign glowing in the wind. I see someone struggling to carry a box.
You're constantly surrounded by potential interventions.
Exactly. I have 5 emails pinging on my phone asking for quick favors. If I am obligated to intervene every time I see an opportunity for improvement, I will be paralyzed. I'll never reach my destination.
You've accurately identified the fatal flaw of applying significantism in isolation. If you only look for positive asymmetry, you will be bled dry by 1,000 tiny interventions.
Which goes back to the limited resources.
Yes. This is why the sources insist that significantism cannot function without its shadow counterpart. You must have a rigid mechanism for rejection.
This introduces the concept of insignificantism, which the text in Causal Priority defines as the conscious, deliberate avoidance of causal interventions, where the expected benefits are too small to justify the resources they consume.
It is the disciplined practice of strategic non-action.
I have to admit, when I first processed this, my immediate reaction was highly cynical. This sounds incredibly convenient, you know.
Oh, it definitely can sound that way.
It sounds like a hyper-intellectualized excuse for apathy. If a friend asks me to help them move furniture all weekend and I just want to sit on the couch and watch television, can't I just invoke insignificantism?
Just tell them your math doesn't work out.
Yeah. Can I claim, hey, my expected value calculation dictates that the benefit to you does not outweigh the caloric and temporal cost to me? Is this just a philosophical loophole for being a selfish, antisocial person?
It is a critical distinction, and the texts address this danger explicitly. The geometry of influence argues that insignificantism is absolutely not a justification for apathy or cruelty.
Okay, then what is it?
It is instead a necessary mechanism for survival and ultimate utility. The difference lies in what you are protecting your energy for.
Explain that distinction. How do I know I'm utilizing a necessary filter and not just rationalizing my own laziness?
It returns to the premise of finite capacity. Your time, focus, and energy are strictly closed systems. Every single minute you spend intervening in a low-impact scenario is a minute that is permanently destroyed. It can never be allocated to a high-impact scenario.
So it's basically an opportunity cost argument.
Precisely. If you stop to fix every crooked sign on the street, you will arrive at your job exhausted. You will perform poorly, perhaps missing a crucial detail in your work that actually matters.
Right.
If you expend all your emotional bandwidth engaging in trivial arguments with strangers online because you want to correct them, you will have zero patience left for your children when you put your phone down.
That hits home.
Insignificantism is the defensive perimeter around your capital. You are hoarding your energy not to be lazy, but to ensure you have the reserves necessary to push the massive dominoes when you finally encounter them.
The text provides a brilliant counterexample to the nail to illustrate this exact boundary line. It's called the parable of the rock.
The rock in the driveway is the ultimate test of your discipline within this framework because, superficially, the required input is identical to the nail.
Okay, let's lay out the scenario for everyone. You are walking along the same residential road, but instead of a sharp nail in the driving lane, you spot a smooth, golf ball-sized rock sitting on the concrete driveway of a suburban home.
Very different threat profile.
Right. But the physical action required of you is exactly the same as before. You stop for 2 seconds, bend over, pick up the rock, and toss it into the grass. It costs a fraction of a calorie.
The input is identical, but the expected return is vastly different. We must analyze the causal chain we are preventing by moving the rock. What is the actual threat?
The text argues that the threat is practically non-existent. A modern car tire is engineered to roll over a smooth rock of that size without sustaining any damage whatsoever.
It won't even register in the cabin of the car.
Right. At absolute worst, it might cause a microscopic, unmeasurable amount of tread wear. It might slightly annoy a pedestrian who has to adjust their stride by 1 inch to step around it. The probability of harm is near zero, and the magnitude of that potential harm is also near zero.
Therefore, moving the rock is a null action. You are expending energy, however infinitesimal, to solve a non-problem.
But someone might argue, and I hear this all the time, it only takes 2 seconds. Why not just do it? It makes the driveway look cleaner. It's a net positive, even if it's small. Why is the text so militant about not moving the rock?
Because of the cognitive cost of context switching, which is vastly more expensive than the physical calories burned.
I have a deeply relatable analogy for this that plagues modern work environments.
Oh, please share.
Imagine you are in a state of deep, focused work. You are writing a complex report, coding a difficult piece of software, or analyzing dense financial data. You are in a flow state, holding a dozen complex variables in your working memory.
You're completely dialed in.
And out of the corner of your eye, you notice that a framed picture on your office wall is tilted off-axis by maybe 3 degrees.
The brain immediately flags it as an anomaly that needs correction.
Yes. Your brain screams, "Fix it." Now, physically, it requires almost nothing to stand up, nudge the frame, and sit back down. 5 seconds of time, 2 calories. But what is the actual cost to your workflow?
The cost is total cognitive collapse.
Exactly. To stand up and fix the frame, you must break your flow state. You must dump the complex variables from your working memory to allocate processing power to your spatial environment.
Which takes real biological energy.
Right. You fix the frame, you sit back down, and it might take you 20 to 30 minutes of arduous mental exertion to rebuild the flow state you just destroyed. You sacrificed a high-value activity, deep, meaningful work to achieve a completely negligible outcome, a perfectly level picture frame that nobody else will ever see.
That is the insidious nature of insignificant actions. They masquerade as productivity. They give you a brief hit of dopamine because you fixed something. You feel like you are organizing your environment, but in reality, you are sabotaging your ultimate utility.
The philosophy of insignificantism demands that you develop the brutal discipline to look at the tilted frame, acknowledge the imperfection, and consciously refuse to act.
It's harder than it sounds.
Oh, it's so hard. You must look at the rock in the driveway, except that it is slightly out of place, and walk past it. You have to allow minor chaos to exist in your periphery so that you can focus your finite energy on the center.
It requires a high tolerance for unresolved minor issues. You are trading localized aesthetic perfection for global systemic leverage.
This demands that we look much closer at the underlying math of this framework. We are constantly throwing around terms like cost, investment, and expected return.
We need to define those engines.
We need to unpack the 2 foundational engines that make this entire philosophy function. Because without them, significantism just sounds like an arbitrary set of rules for being a slightly aloof neighbor. Those 2 engines are opportunity cost and probabilistic value.
If you don't grasp these 2 concepts, you really cannot operate the machinery of this framework. They are the conversion metrics for human effort.
The audience listening is undoubtedly familiar with opportunity cost in a traditional economic sense, right? The idea that spending $10 on lunch means you cannot spend that same $10 on a book.
Basic economics.
But the mechanics of significantism applies this to the deterministic nature of time and action. The text asserts that every single decision is a mass extinction event for alternate timelines. Because you are finite and localized in space and time, you can only occupy one coordinate at a time.
When you decide to act, what currency are you actually spending? You aren't just spending ATP in your muscles. You are spending the absolute unrecoverable potential of that specific moment in the universe.
The text highlights how brutal this is. Time devoted to trivial, low-yield interventions, like arguing with a troll on social media, reorganizing a perfectly functional closet, or meticulously polishing your car while your health deteriorates, is time permanently stolen from high-yield interventions.
Gone forever.
It is time that cannot simultaneously be invested in mastering a new skill, strengthening a vital relationship, exercising your cardiovascular system, or solving a complex societal problem.
Every yes to a triviality is 1,000 no's to your potential. When you say yes to the rock in the driveway, you are saying no to maintaining your cardiovascular rhythm on your run, and you're saying no to the train of thought you were developing.
Insignificant actions actively drain your account. They reduce your capacity to act as a significant domino elsewhere.
But this raises an important question. How do we know what will happen? Determinism doesn't grant humans perfect foresight.
Right. This is exactly where the framework hits a wall that seems insurmountable. This is the exact moment where the philosophy threatens to collapse under its own weight.
Because determinism tells us that the future is locked in based on our actions today. But as human beings, we are completely blind to the future.
We do not possess perfect foresight.
We are operating a deterministic machine while blindfolded.
Exactly. If I am supposed to weigh the opportunity cost and choose the actions that have the best outcomes, how can I possibly know what the outcome will be?
It's the ultimate anxiety.
Let's take the nail again. I pick up the nail, theoretically preventing a flat tire. But what if, by stopping for those 2 seconds to pick up the nail, I delay my walk just enough so that I arrive at an intersection exactly as a drunk driver runs a red light and I am killed?
The butterfly effect.
Yes. If I had ignored the nail, I would have cleared the intersection 2 seconds earlier and lived. How can I possibly know?
You cannot know. And this is the genius of the second engine introduced in the geometry of influence, probabilistic value. The text does not claim that we can perfectly predict the future.
Thank goodness, because that would be impossible.
It openly embraces the uncertainty of the human perspective. It acknowledges the butterfly effect, that a seemingly brilliant intervention might result in catastrophe, while a seemingly trivial action might accidentally cure a disease.
So if the outcomes are inherently unknowable on a granular level, how does the framework not just disintegrate into nihilism?
Because it shifts the metric of success from guaranteed outcomes to expected value. It relies on reasoned estimates of probability and consequence.
We have to break this down because this is the psychological key to avoiding absolute paralysis. Expected value is a concept from statistics and gambling.
Right, you don't need a crystal ball. You just need to understand basic odds.
Let's revisit the nail in the speeding car. Is it possible that delaying my walk by 2 seconds gets me hit by a car? Yes, it is physically possible within the infinite variables of the universe.
But what is the probability of that specific timing aligning? It is astronomically low. It is a freak statistical anomaly.
Conversely, what is the probability of a sharp metal nail on a busy roadway puncturing a rubber tire?
It is exceptionally high. The materials are literally designed to interact destructively. Therefore, the expected value of picking up the nail remains highly positive.
The overwhelmingly high probability of preventing a common severe harm vastly outweighs the microscopic probability of causing a freak accident.
And we apply the same statistical rigor to the ride in the driveway. The probability of the rock causing catastrophic tire failure is near zero. The expected value is near zero.
We were placing bets with your time and energy.
Exactly. Significantism does not demand that you win every bet. It only demands that you place bets where the odds heavily favor a positive outcome for the causal network.
This completely changes how we process regret and anxiety. We navigate a deterministic universe without losing our minds by accepting our blindness. We use our rationality, our historical data, and our logic to push the dominoes that usually lead to better outcomes.
It separates the quality of the decision from the quality of the outcome. If you make a highly significant, well-reasoned choice based on expected value, and it results in a negative outcome due to unforeseeable, low-probability variables, the framework argues you should feel zero regret.
Because you did the math right.
You executed the algorithm perfectly. You placed the right bet. The universe simply delivered the 1 in a million negative result.
That is an incredibly liberating concept. You judge yourself on the rigor of your filter, not the unpredictability of the universe. It frees you from the paralyzing fear of making a mistake, allowing you to continually execute high-value actions.
It's freeing.
We have traversed an enormous amount of philosophical terrain today. We started with the inescapable, crushing weight of cosmic determinism, and we have arrived at the mathematical equations of expected value and resource allocation.
We have mapped the architecture of choice.
So the final task is synthesis. How do we compress this massive cosmic framework into a daily operating system for you, the listener? How do you take these texts and use them to live a fundamentally more effective life, starting right now?
The synthesis is realizing that this is not abstract philosophy. It is aggressive self-management. The ultimate goal is to maximize the positive long-term outcomes of your existence while ruthlessly eliminating the expenditure of your finite resources on trivialities.
It demands that you wake up from the autopilot of daily life.
Absolutely.
It's a call for hyper-awareness. You must walk through the world acutely aware that you are a node in a causal network. Every choice you make is a cause, and every cause is a domino falling.
But to speak directly to you right now, the relief of this system is that it does not demand perfection. You do not have to try to control every single domino.
You don't have to monitor the entire chain. If you attempt that, you will suffer a nervous breakdown.
Your only responsibility is to your immediate sphere of influence. Your job is to identify the specific high-leverage dominoes within your reach, the ones most likely to produce outsized beneficial consequences, and push them.
Find the nails in the road of your own life. Find them in your career, your finances, your relationships. Expend the 2 seconds of energy to remove them, knowing you are preventing massive future chaos.
But equally important, you must cultivate the discipline to identify the rocks in your driveway.
The petty arguments, the aesthetic imperfections, the endless scrolling, and you must deliberately, consciously walk right past them without breaking your stride.
You are giving yourself permission to ignore the trivial so that you have the raw power to conquer the significant. You own your energy, and you dictate which causal chains receive your fuel.
It is a remarkable lens through which to view human agency. Well, we have unpacked a staggering amount of insight today. I want to sincerely thank you for helping us navigate this intricate strategy for deterministic living.
It's been a real pleasure.
I think we've clearly established that anyone can become radically more effective by simply weighing the expected value of their actions and fiercely defending their finite energy.
It has been a profound discussion. It truly alters the gravity of even the simplest daily actions.
Before we sign off, we always want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought. Something that takes the core of today's deep dive and pushes it one step further. What is the lingering question for us today?
If your goal is to initiate causal chains with massive beneficial ripple effects, consider what happens when your significant dominoes collide with someone else's.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
We analyze the nail in the road. If you remove that nail, you are preventing a flat tire. But consider the identity of the driver you saved.
Right.
What if you ensured that a surgeon made it to the hospital on time to perform a critical operation? By expending 2 seconds of energy, you initiated an entirely new, massive causal chain of life-saving events that belongs to them, but was made possible entirely by you. Your small, calculated action became the prerequisite for their monumental action. So the question to mull over today is this. What unseen, monumental causal chains are you unwittingly fueling today with your deliberate choices?
What a terrifying and beautiful thought. We are all pushing dominoes in the dark, and we never truly know whose monumental chain we are setting into motion. Keep placing your dominoes wisely, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.